Okay, if you love ridiculously overpowered cosmic entities, yeah, man, the ending of Thunder War, you're gonna love this. Okay, here's the thing, and this is gonna be kind of nuts. Initially, we pick up with Jericho Drum, Brother Voodoo. Now, this is gonna be incredibly important because we're gonna pick back up with this at the end of the comic. But he says here, as the cattle beast is slaughtered, its body bled dry, and its carcass hung on meat hooks, one must realize the abattoir is not the real danger. The real threat lies in the slaughterhouse and worships its instruments of carnage, carving flesh and bone into masterpieces. Dr. Voodoo, the Hungan Supreme, has stepped into the abattoir. Its inhabitant has taken notice of him, and the butcher is not pleased. It's Gore the God Butcher, right? Like, it's amazing to see this guy's back. Now, here's the crazy thing. Drum addresses him directly, right? He says, Gore the God Butcher, right? And the butcher responds. He says, Jericho Drum, the gunner of gods. You seek to aid your storm god in her battle against Hadad. Unfortunately for her, death calls for you. Now, we're going to jump back to that, right? This is going to be really, really important once we get to the end, right? It's going to be super important. God, this comic is so phenomenal. So, at that point, we jump back into this monologue again, right? For eons, eternity and oblivion have traded blows, but victory was always oblivion's. Storm gods were birthed from eternity's rage, anger, and twisted desire to be indomitable. As Hadad, the first storm god, approaches Earth, our planet mirrors the primordial forces that created him. Our skies thunder, turning blooded as they squeal violently. But outside our planet, within a clump of atmosphere held together by divine will, you could hear a pin drop. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, man, Hadad has some of the best lines that I think I've ever seen from a villain. Honestly, I think he rivals Doctor Doom. And you guys know that that's saying something, right? You know it's saying something. There's no small thing that you just throw out there. Rivaling Doctor Doom's line, right? Check this out. Here's what I'm talking about, right? So this kind of bounces back and forth between 30 minutes ago and what's happening right now, right? And where Storm addresses him, just stating his name, Hadad. Hadad responds in saying, Host of eternity, I am not a violent god. These hands have worked so many wonders. They performed miracles. Today, you will die by them. And immediately clocks Storm, right? Just immediately clocks this girl. And he says, my desires are many. Watching you die like an animal, not knowing why you are being put down, is not one of them. Dude, it's nuts because this guy is crushing Storm. I mean, just crushing Storm. Now, there is one thing to understand here. This is just regular Storm, right? Keep in mind that over the course of the Storm comic, the looming threat of Hadad, while we didn't really see him until later on, it was always kind of out there. And there came a point when Eternity bonded himself to Storm, and she became the Eternal Storm, which was an amazing power upgrade. Following that and the return of Hadad, everything kind of, transpiring after that, Eternity left, and we'll talk about where he went to here in a second, but it's kind of a war among the cosmic entities against what are basically the forces of Hadad, because it's not just him, right? It's the Black Winters, because we learned there was more than one Black Winter, and again, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But one of the things that he tells the Storm is he says, the entities love to hear themselves speak. They make grand pronouncements about what is required of their subjects, but the misdeeds of abstracts are the most well-kept secrets in the cosmos. They have told you nothing about why I seek the end of everything. They have told you nothing about why you and your planet must die. And the response of Storm, I understand the unfair, painful weights you must have been forced to shoulder. I understand that we take different paths in the face of unforgivable justice. But if you attempt to break my planet, hurt my people in your vengeful quest, an immortal shall meet its swift end. So it's not to take away from Storm's lines. Here's the thing. Those of you guys who are not familiar with the Storm comic right now, it has elevated her in ways that none of us ever could have imagined. She's never been more awesome than she has in this comic right now. Like, it's phenomenal, right? But here's the crazy thing. When she goes on the attack against Hadad, he just kind of cracks his neck a little bit, right? Preparing for battle. And he's like, are you crying? And he says, you have not awakened your boundless eyes, have you? You have not looked through time to learn of the hosts before you. You know nothing of eternal madness, the insane, eternal Hadad, the devastator. As it stands, you barely know eternal Storm, the turbulent. With the powers you struggle to wield, I dominated the primordial abstract entities, drained the living tribunal and use their powers to wage a war against the one above all. Of all the beings that I have encountered in battle, the only reason you will be remembered is because of how incredibly weak you are. You were forged in a desert. Good. I will unmake you in this one. Dude, it's like the coldest line. Like, holy cow, it is absolutely amazing. But notice this, right? He creates a black winter out of nowhere. Like, he literally just creates a black winter in thin air. Now, that's one of the things to keep in mind, right? To kind of fill in the gaps for those of you guys who are just now catching up and don't really know everything that's going on. Because we're going to jump to eternity here in a second and the one above all, which is amazing. So one of the things to keep in mind is the Black Winter was a concept created by Donny Cates during his run on Thor. That in the same way Galactus created the Silver Surfer in order to travel around the universe, find worlds for Galactus to consume, that the Black Winter was this gigantic retcon on basically the origin and the nature of Galactus, where basically the Black Winter was using Galactus to find other universes. So the Black Winter could consume those entire universes. And in fact, in the Black Winter's initial introduction, there was a strong indication that it consumed the DC universe, which is kind of wild when you think about it. But there was only ever really one, and that Black Winter was ultimately undone. With the introduction of Hadad here, right, everything that's going on with him, there's more than one Black Winter, right? There's just like an army of these beings that travel around. They're capable of consuming universes, but they have been forced into the service of Hadad, given how much power he has. And they were going after virtually every storm god that exists out there from every single pantheon. It's one of the things that we saw before, that you had a coming together of essentially the storm godheads, right? So Zeus and Beta Ray Bill, who had taken the place of Thor since Thor had seemingly lost his abilities, right? If you guys remember the death of immortal Thor, he's just the mortal Thor now, right? So he's just back to being Sigurd, essentially. But the point is, they were all attacked in one fell swoop by the Black Winter, and Beta Ray Bill was the only one who made it out in one piece. So again, a massive war among all the gods in one fell swoop. So here's the thing. At that point, we jump to the House of Ideas, where the one above all resides. And Eternity had gone to meet with the one above all, and basically bartered to save everything in existence. And that's where the one above all addresses him directly and says, sometimes I wish I had created my children to require sustenance like you did with your humans. I would have more to offer you than my undivided attention when you come to visit. My mind would be at rest knowing that you would leave me with more than a memory of my company, but a physical rejuvenation too. Now, here's an important thing to understand here. For those of you guys who love the idea of the Marvel cosmology, one of the things that's happening in the Storm comics, and just by way of this conversation, sometimes I wish I had created my children to require sustenance like you did with your humans. This kind of undoes everything that happened in Al Ewing's Ultimates, the first firmament, right? That seemingly the one above all created the first firmament. The first firmament was destroyed in a war between the Aspirants and the Celestials and shattered into an infinite number of pieces, or some large number of pieces, and that created the first multiverse, and where there was no explanation of where the other cosmic entities came from, outside of the fact that Eternity just kind of manifested as what would happen if any one universe could just walk around and have a conversation with you. This is kind of retconning all of that, right? It's happening in real time, and it's essentially saying all cosmic entities were created by the one above all, even universal cosmic entities like Eternity. And if you doubt me, here's where things get cool, because the one above all says, you are always the superior creator, Eternity. Now, Eternity responds and says, I would not dare say the one above all is wrong, but you always give me this undeserved praise. Hadad has reached Earth, Father. He will find my heart within the planet, end me, and I will cease to exist. What sort of better creator dreads his own creation so? Now, here's the thing to understand. Cosmic entities speak in metaphors, but just take it for what it is, right? He will travel to Earth, he will kill my heart, I will cease to exist. The universe will die, is effectively what he's saying. If Eternity dies, the universe dies, right? So, the one above all says, all great creators fear the power of their creations. But Eternity responds here, and he says, if I truly am what you say, then the glory is all yours. You made me. The creator of the great creator is the greater creator. Even the one above all says, you make beings that can surpass you in strength, in wisdom, some of your creations have even found their way here to converse with me. You have made me proud. Now, the most obvious instance here is the Fantastic Four, right? There have been a couple of times where that happened. The most popular one is the one where the Fantastic Four meet Jack Kirby, right? In the House of Ideas, the Artist Room, the Bullpen. It goes by different names in Marvel depending on what era of comics you're talking about. And so that's where the One Above All seems to kind of be disappointed in Eternity and just says, what do you want? And so Eternity responds and says, for you to stop Hadad, before he destroys me and my sister Infinity, before he destroys the universe. The response to the One Above All, I have come to bargain for the fate of the universe, Father. That was Eternity's statements, right? He says that. Those were your words when you barged into my abode to interrupt my work. What have you brought to bargain with? What precious possession do you own that my desire would be to separate you from it? What sacred sacrifice will wash away your atrocity? You caused the slaughter of oblivion, my first son, the void from which everything came. What makes you so deserving of the slightest speck of my compassion? And the response of Eternity, I'm your son too. But the One Above All actually responds in a pretty callous way. And in fact, he addresses that directly. He says, I am the joy of new birth, the love that makes a being sacrifice its life for another, the hope for a better tomorrow in the face of tribulations. I am the goodness and mercy you hoped to find here, but I am also wrath, justice, retribution, and vengeance after countless eons of protecting you from black winters. And that's where Eternity kind of interrupts, and he says, Oblivion only did so because his twin Death was housed within me. Now here's the crazy thing, and here's something to address for those of you guys who kind of need the gaps filled in a little bit. What's really being talked about here is the trial by combat between Oblivion and Eternity. There were 13 of them, and the trials by combat were designed to determine where Mistress Death would be housed. Would she be housed within Oblivion, or would she be housed within Eternity? Now, this was an instance of the Storm comics actually referencing Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, specifically the Builders and the Gardeners. Now, if you guys are interested in learning more about those, I have a video that'll go far more in depth into what we're talking about here. But what matters is this: one of the Ex Nihili, right, also known as Gardeners, were taken by Eternity and turned into basically his avatar. That was the 13th trial. In that 13th trial, Oblivion killed the Avatar. And when that happened, it led to Mistress Death being housed within Eternity. And that's how Mistress Death exists, seemingly within the universe itself. Now, there isn't much in the way of explanation as to how that applies to other universes across the multiverse, but the fact is that in an effort to essentially cheat, that Eternity had unleashed Abraxas, right? The living embodiment of the multiverse's destruction, essentially, from the old Abraxas saga storylines, to try to destroy his brother. And that's the cheating that the One Above All is talking about. Now, the Living Tribunal kind of was the judge over all these things and so on and so forth. But the fact is, Oblivion was in turn killed by the storm god Hadad, who was housed within Oblivion. Now, that goes back to Storm issue number 8. And one of the things that, of course, Hadad had talked about that we mentioned earlier was the idea that he had essentially used the power of the cosmic abstracts. He was so far beyond them, even the Living Tribunal. Seemingly, he was second to the One Above All. Within Storm number 8, we end up learning that the One Above All had to defeat Hadad, and that's when he was locked away within Oblivion, where he remained ever since. And in response to Eternity trying to kill Oblivion, Oblivion tried to kill Eternity by releasing Hadad, underestimating the level of anger that Hadad had for basically all the cosmic abstracts. And so immediately the creation kills the creator. So that was kind of the insane thing behind all of this. And so that's why, kind of jumping back into this moment, when Eternity asks the One Above All to act, the One Above All says, I am the uncreated creator, Lord of the multiverse. I sit in the House of Ideas and see into the far shore. All that is because I will it. I am the One Above All. What crisis do you think would befall all of existence should I let loose the anti-creation inferno that is my fury? Seemingly referencing the one below all. And he says, what calamity shall bombard all that is and ever will be should I surrender to the titanic abyss of my despair? My son is gone, and I cannot mourn. Order and chaos understood each other's roles and found balance. Within you, death and life reached a compromise, but you and your brother only desired to end each other. Hadad will grant both your wishes. And so at that point, you jump back to the battle between Hadad and Storm. And the Black Winter chimes in here, right? Speaks directly to Storm and says, you have been defeated by Hadad, the first storm god, the indiscriminate devastator. I am the Black Winter who will devour this universe. Know me and know your ender. But at that moment, thunder comes crashing down and strikes everything. And Beta Ray Bill is there, right? And in fact, his power destroyed the spear of Hadad. And Beta Ray Bill just says, let your rage fuel your flames, brother. Let the tyrant fall before the serpent storm god. Let the villain's obliteration make all tremble at the might of Beta Ray Bill and sugar. Because that's kind of how it comes across, right? And Hadad just says, your flames destroyed my thunder spear. No matter, I will fashion your bones into a new one when I am through with you. And that's a crazy thing because the battle between the two is pretty intense. And so this monologue kicks back in again, right? 3 billion years ago, Oblivion slew Eternal Madness the Insane, the 13th host of Eternity, in a trial by combat. Eternity determined to hence never lose to Oblivion and created the Elder Gods. But the Elder Gods were not his masterpiece. His magnum opus was Hadad, the first storm god, and all storm gods can track their lineage far back to a single Elder God, Gaia, all except one, Aurora Monroe, blood of the elder god Ashtur. Those ignorant of her nature called her the storm god who retreats, but we know the terrifying truth of who she is. Hadar Yao, mistress of the elements, god eater, the omega of omegas, the indomitable storm, and she will die to protect her homeworld and her universe. And so at that point, you jump back to eternity and the one above all. And the one above all addresses him and then also gives him some salient pieces of advice where he says, our creations can seem so vastly dissimilar, but our experiences as creators can be all too familiar. It is easy to be a tortured artist, son, to doubt your work, to hate what your craft says about the kind of individual you must be. The fear and hate you have for Hadad is immeasurable. You sense his approach and see a reflection of everything you despise about yourself. If only you had an equal amount of respect and trust for the creation who bleeds to preserve your life despite your cruelty, to look upon her face and see everything endearing about you. You could never defeat Oblivion, yet a being that you crafted achieved the impossible. A word of advice from this creator. Love your creation as I love you dearly. And that's the important thing here, right? Eternity believes in the half-life, right? He can never make anything more powerful than himself. Even though he talks about the idea that he can, he doesn't really believe that Hadad can be defeated if he bonds himself with Storm. But again, that's the important lesson of the one above all. You created a being more powerful than yourself. So powerful, in fact, I had to step in to save all of creation from this sky. Do not underestimate what you can achieve, and do not estimate the power of the love you have for the things that you have made. And so that again is where the monologue comes back in. Eternity, after meeting his maker, must converse with his creation, but first, reprehension. Because what that does is it kind of switches over to all these battles that are happening around the same time. First and foremost, Galactus and the Silver Surfer facing off against what is seemingly a handful of Black Winters. We don't really get a whole lot of that particular battle. Of course, Quasar is facing off against Infinity, and so you have all these individuals fighting all these different people, but you have Storm, who talks directly to Hadad, having now rechanneled the power of Eternity. And that's the cool thing, is Eternity speaks directly to her. He says, imagine it, Earther, your father, who has always been your solid foundation, the most unbending man you have ever known, a true fighter. Imagine walking into his abode in the shadows of a quiet place with sorrow pouring down his face, and you realize the reason why he feels so much pain in his heart is you. I am the son who broke his father's heart. I have no honor in my father's eyes, nor in yours. Aurora Monroe, All I have done has been for my sake, never considering the weight of my actions on you, your desires, your will, your autonomy. For this, I ask your forgiveness. And Storm's just like, there's a lot of things that I want to tell you, but right now, we have more important things to focus on. Because she's pissed. She's angry, right? And in fact, that's one of the things that's said here, right? With the words of the one above all echoing in his mind, eternity returns to Storm's body. In the speed of thought, Storm and eternity's consciousness, powers, and identities merge into the super cosmic being known as the eternal Storm, demanding and giving the other forgiveness, understanding, and grace. Eternity submits his will and his form to the control of our hero, our universe's deadliest warrior. But at the end of the day, control of Storm's body belongs to her. And so what Storm does is the only thing she can do. To me, Abraxas, loan me your strength. And Abraxas, as a being that just represents the very concept of destruction, is powerful enough to be able to overcome Hadad. And channeling that power, Storm becomes powerful enough to overcome Hadad. And in fact, that's what Eternity says. Hadad will begin to loosen his grip on our neighboring realms to become far too powerful for you to fight alone. But we have a treaty. Infinity, the Never Queen, and the Phoenix Force will converge here to join the battle. All you must do is stall until they arrive. And the response of Storm? Not a chance, right? If this battle is going to end, it's ending here on my terms. It's why Storm is so dope. Because as she's just like pummeling this guy, she's running over all the martial arts styles that she knows, right? Muay Thai and some word that I can't pronounce from the Black Panther, Kenjutsu and Krav Maga from Wolverine, Tai Chi and Hung Gar by Shang-Chi. She just knows like all these styles of martial arts, which makes sense. Storm has always been an incredibly capable fighter, and is kind of the unsung hero of her battle repertoire, right? When it comes to hand-to-hand combat, Storm is not the person you want to mug. You know what I mean, right? She's gonna break every bone in your body, right? That's exactly what's gonna happen. And so again, this monologue kind of continues, right? When storm gods of a certain caliber brawl, it is easy to compare the bout to those beings who wield Herculean strength, but the comparison lacks nuance. What would appear as brute force to the untrained eye is the skillful manipulation of the cosmic elements. When the storm gods knock their victims to the ground, they keep them glued to the surface of the planet by exponentially increasing the gravitational pull of that region to match a black hole cluster. With control over electricity running through their synapses, they accelerate their speed and reaction time. Every blow from their fists assaults the body with an atmospheric pressure that rivals the sun's plasma core. Lesser beings would have died 1,000 times over, but Hadad was no such being. But he kind of is, because Storm is beating the brakes off of this guy. I mean, she's pummeling this dude, leaving him all bloody and everything. But here's the crazy thing. Initially, he tells her, right, he tries to plead with her, and he says, look into your shared memory with eternity. See what eternity did to me, what the one above all allowed him to do to me. See if you would not want to end them all too. And the response of Storm, I don't care about any of that, right? You aim to kill me and destroy my planet. Even then, I do not intend to end you. I will imprison you in a pocket dimension like all thunder gods before you who threatened me and my home. But that's the crazy thing here, is because, again, we're told, you have been told many times that the universe is ever changing, ever expanding. That may be true, but the universe is also a cruel constant, incapable of being something better. It will do anything to further itself. Eternity, dreading the future consequences of Storm's mercy, betrays her trust. Eternity forcibly subjugates Storm's body and slays Hadad in cold blood. In a fit of fury, Storm reaches within every fiber of her being and rejects the treacherous abstract entity from her very soul. Never again will Storm trust our universe. She will never trust eternity, right? In this moment, because she realized in this moment when eternity says, your body will be your own, that he was afraid of what would happen if Hadad was in prison, that Hadad could come back. And so at that point, death. And that's what pisses her off so much. Now, here's the ending that I told you was so important, the one that we were going to circle back to, right? The royal palace, the realm of death. Mistress Death speaks directly. She says, I have allowed myself to remain imprisoned, finding only small pleasures in the crafts of my adversaries. I have stayed confined because I deemed my judges just and my jailers justified. My brother Oblivion has been felled by a creation of eternity, yet the living tribunal has dealt no punishment. The one above all is aloof, nowhere to be seen. That is why I have summoned you here, Necromancer, because she has Jericho drum, right? And she says, you will be my executioner's blade, my avatar, the avatar of death, as we wage war on all those responsible for taking my brother from me. You will be my battle general in the crusade to come, in the war above all. And if you look into the background, what do you see? Noel the Symbiote God and Marvel Zombies. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this to an end. I told you, man. I told you, son. This story is amazing. It's absolutely, oh my God. I'm sorry I'm so excited, people. But it is an exciting story, man. It is an exciting story. It's phenomenal. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.